This is, my husband and I have lived in Central Washington since we graduated from residency at the University of Washington in family practice. And we just, initially I came here, I wasn't sure I wanted to live in Yakima, but I have grown to love it dearly. And I particularly love the beautiful open spaces here, and particularly it's a very endangered ecosystem that we live in here in the shrub steppe area. But these are some of the things I love most about it. I love the wildflowers. We have some very unique butterflies, the grouse, which is endangered. This tree is up off of Windy Point. It's probably 600 years old, and we discovered it on one of our many hikes. And that's my husband sitting up on one of the limbs of this just enormous tree. Can everybody see what I'm seeing?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, good. So I'm going to be speaking on the issue of climate change impacts in the Northwest and solving the climate challenge. As Mary Lou said, I've been working on climate issues for the past 22 years, but my interest in the environment started when I got my master's in public health from the University of Michigan in the early 80s. And I got very interested in environmental health when a radiation health specialist and statistician and a nun came to the University of Michigan School of Public Health and presented on low-level radiation health effects. I then went off with this nun, traveling in the Pacific Islands, educating communities about the health effects from the nuclear testing by the United Kingdom, France, and the US in the Pacific Islands. So I then came back and started medical school and continued to look at the area of radiation health effects at Hanford. And I did that while going to medical school, and did a special internship at the CDC on environmental health effects and looking at Hanford. And then about 20 years ago, I was reading some science material about climate change and became very disturbed and worried about it because I had 3 small children. And so the last 20 years, I have been focusing on climate change. And initially, I go to the United Methodist Church, Wesley United Methodist Church, and we were one of the first, what we call greening congregations in Eastern Washington. And a greening congregation is one that has a special mission or focus on earth stewardship. And so some of the things we did included getting a big solar array on our roof and doing some energy conservation measures, like we changed our whole heating system and it made to a more efficient one, and it cut our bills by half. And we've done some, we did this, it's called Car-Free Sunday thing, where everybody walked to church or carpool to church, and a variety of things. But then as I was kind of working on it at our church, I realized it wasn't quite enough for me, and I wanted to do something more on a national level, because I felt like we weren't making much headway on coming up with some solutions for climate change. And so I got involved with this organization called Citizens Climate Lobby. So that's kind of my background, my kind of public health, environmental health background. And as a family physician, I'm gonna give you kind of an basic information about some of the environmental health impacts of climate change here. So one of the things that Citizens Climate Lobby, their main focus is building the political will to act on climate. And it's only been in existence for about 10 years, but we have hundreds of chapters, and we work on on getting endorsements from our city council and our newspaper, and writing our legislators, telling them how concerned we are about climate change. And we feel we're very proud of the fact that we have gotten the city council to endorse the legislation that we're most interested in, which is a carbon fee and dividend legislation. They did that a couple of years ago, and then the Yakima Herald came out with an editorial also endorsing the legislation that we're interested in promoting. And the carbon fee, there's lots of ways to help decrease the impact of climate change, but one of the best ways to decrease emissions of carbon from the burning of fossil fuels and the burning of gas and all that, which is the source of climate change. One of the most effective ways is a carbon fee and dividend. And so that has been our focus. So I'll be talking a little bit more about that as we go along. So basically 3 learning goals: specific impacts of climate change will have on the Northwest region. I'll talk about that. A little bit about the benefits of smart policy solutions like the carbon fee and dividend, and how to take action to encourage your representatives to implement climate solutions. So Chrissy or Mary Lou, if you could just look at the audience, and I'm going to just ask you, what of these 4 different options, which describes you best? So I'm going to start with the first one, which is, I haven't heard much about climate change and I don't think it's much of a problem. Number 1, I think climate change is real and important, but I'm not yet doing much about it. 2, I've taken some steps to reduce my personal choices, but not much more. 3, I actively address climate change through my personal choices and by working on national policy. And this thing is in the way. That lowers greenhouse gases. So what, I guess we have about 23 participants. Could you tell me like approximately how many people are,
So hold up your fingers, how many, for the number that you count.
Well, most people, their screens are on.
I'm Barb Heinzen is a 3.
Yeah, if you put up a finger, 1, 2, 3, if people could, that's one way to do it. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that.
I'm a 3.
I'm a 3.
We got a lot of 3s.
We've got a bunch of 3s.
I'll be a, yeah, 2.5, 3.
2.5, 3. Who else? Speak right up, everybody.
3.
3. We've got some 3s.
3.
Looks like we've got 2s and 3s.
Oh, okay, Dad. My dad's a 3.
Okay.
He yelled from the stairs.
What's he say? What's Dad say?
3.
He's a 3. Good.
For him.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a group that actually knows quite a bit about what's going on. So let's see. Okay, now my slideshow is not letting me move. I'm not sure why. Okay. I tell you. Let's see if that works.
What? It's not letting you move?
Yeah, it's not letting me move my slides. Let me see. Why is that? Okay. Oh, there we go. Huh. I am looking forward to doing presentations in person in the future. So let's see. Oh my goodness.
We still have which describes you best on there.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yes.
Sarah, this is Barb Heinzen. I have to interject. Joel has to go pick up kids. Sorry about that. He's going to sign off.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
Can you see this next slide?
No.
No. It's still
Okay.
on which describes you best.
Okay, let's stop share again. Let's share it again. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why that's doing that.
Okay.
Now
It's-
run.
Yeah,
Climate weather connections.
Yeah, it's just not moving. Oh, I see. I can just do it this way. My goodness. So let me get the full, let's see. My arrow isn't working. Can you see this full slideshow?
Yes.
Okay, great.
It goes to, yeah, all the way to water vapor. Yeah.
Okay, so climate weather changes. So we have higher temperatures and more evaporation from the soil, drier conditions leading that are causing drought. And of course, we're getting hot weather changes, wildfires. We also get, with the higher temperatures, more evaporation of water into the atmosphere, causing precipitation and floods. That's kind of a basic. Okay, this happened the last time. To go to this. And then just the Northwest, we have some amazing resources here. We are known for our clean air. We have abundant water, low cost hydroelectric power. Over half of our electricity comes from hydroelectric power. We have vast forests and extensive farmlands. I apologize, my arrow is working and then it doesn't work. The outdoor recreation includes hiking, boating, fishing, hunting, and skiing. And it's a big part of our economy. As you can see, the agricultural part of the economy is very much a part of Eastern Washington. If you look at the land coverage by agriculture up in Washington State, and this is also a big part of our economy in terms of our natural resources. You can see that for Washington, the natural resources industry is 58.8 billion sales revenues. You know, people come here for hiking, for recreating. There's just, this is an important and very a big part of our economy here. So what is the projected climate changes? So we expect less precipitation in summer, but more in winter, and overall, we will see less precipitation. Higher temperatures, especially in summer, less precipitation falling as snow and more as rain, and more extremes, hot, dry, very wet. And here in central Washington, I'm gonna move this thing down out of the way. We have seen a decline in our snowpack over the past 50 years of 50%. We're seeing drier soils, wasted crops, and lost income. The picture in the right of the Yakima Valley Orchard in 2015, we had a big drought, and you know, of course, that we have junior water rights and senior water rights. This was a orchardist that had junior water rights and lost his orchard because of the, you know, just there wasn't the water. Okay. Truly. And then in terms of higher spring temperatures leading to earlier flowering and a mismatch with pollinator availability. Well, you know, this past couple of weeks we've had, talking to farmers, usually we might have a day or two where we might have really cold weather at this time, but not a week of cold weather. And I don't know about you, but I have a beautiful plum tree that started flowering about 3 weeks ago. And when it's cold, the pollinators can't move very well. And so you get this mismatch with the pollinator availability. And that's one of the things that, you know, and that was in the newspaper recently, that they're worried about the orchard crops. Summer heat stress can lead to sunburn, scald on apples and softer berry crops that can be damaged in transport and harvest. And heat stress can be hard on livestock, just decreasing their immune system, possibly increasing parasite abundance, making their forage less quality and quantity of forage. And then I'm sure many of you have heard about, I'm sure all of you are well aware of the decrease in salmon populations and other fish populations. This is due to stream flows have declined, the stream temperatures are higher, there's a high rate of mortality for salmon, and then we're also seeing these really unusually hot, hotter oceans, more acidic areas where there isn't a good oxygenation and loss of marine life as well. Let me just move this, excuse me. See if I can move this around a little bit. So one of the things that is projected in the research is that we're going to see larger and longer duration fires, and we are seeing that. As you know, I think whereas fires in the summertime seem to be an intermittent thing for us in Yakima, over the past several years, it's every summer event that we're having these fires, and the air quality is greatly impacted. And there are times where we have to stay indoors because the air quality is so poor. Okay. I know there's something I'm doing to not get this thing moving as well. I do not understand it. Maybe it's my computer, but I apologize. I hope you're still able to see everything. So this is an interesting slide that shows the smoke exposure for US counties from 2009 to 2013. So if you look at Washington State and you look at Eastern Washington, you can see that even in that time period, 2009 to 2013, you could see that the average days per year of smoke exposure is much higher than on the west side of the mountains. Now, if we move to the time period of 2016 to 2020, it's even worse, which is that's what I'm in the previous slide, what I'm trying to explain, but this is a visual that shows that we really are seeing a lot more days of smoke exposure in the past few years. And as you can see, the 2019, for me, this is a report that came out of the American Lung Association, and they publish this report every, I think, 2 to 3 years. And they specifically highlight the fact that with these record heat is increasing wildfires and other pollutants in the US. And they also highlighted Yakima being ranking 6th nationwide for highest level of short-term air pollution, and followed by Seattle, Tacoma, which was 9th, and Spokane Valley 16th. So we were, in terms of this type of short-term air pollution, we really have some very bad air pollution. So why do we care about this? Well, unfortunately, asthma is a very common problem in the US and in other parts of the world. 2.5 million children and 9.7 million adults with asthma live in counties that received a failing grade for at least one air pollutant. And we know that air pollution is a major trigger for children and adults who have asthma or who have COPD. So this is a big concern. And also in that report, they highlighted the fact that during that time period, there were efforts at the national level to weaken the Clean Air Act. And that was going to add on to the difficulties we have now with climate change happening. But this was going to that our efforts to clean up the air were going to even be more difficult. And as you know, that in the 1970s, the Clean Air Act was implemented, and it had an amazing effect in improving air quality, but we still have a ways to go. Okay. Okay. Thanks for your understanding again of this crazy computer. So in June of 2021, last year, I think we all recall those really high temperatures we had in our area. And that was in the whole region, Northwest region. Just trying to get this thing to go. We had over 1,000 deaths resulted from the extreme heat. Over 1 billion marine deaths because of the heating of the ocean in the area off the coast of the Northwest. And in Quileute in Northwest Washington at 110 degrees Fahrenheit, that broke its previous record high of a temperature of 11 degrees. I'm sure we also broke some records as well. And they noticed that in ERs during this time period, there was a 70% increase in people coming in to the ER with heat exhaustion. And when they looked at that, when they studied and looked back at that episode where we had that really extreme heat, the study concluded that the extremity of the heat was virtually impossible without human-caused climate change. And heat is especially bad for kids' health. There is an increase in premature birth and pregnant women who are exposed to high heat, and hospital admissions of young children also increase. And a lot of it has to do with young children lose proportionally more fluids than adults because they have a larger body surface area, and their bodies are, they're less able to regulate their temperature. This is also true for elderly as well. And what we know is that that with the increasing heat waves, that if you look back, we know that someone who was born in the 1800s has a once in a lifetime rate of heat wave, but that has increased. If someone was born in 1960, they had a 4 times probability of experiencing a heat wave, a very severe heat wave. But a child born in 2021 has up to, going forward, a 50 times risk of exposure to extreme heat waves. And this is why we need to act on climate. And what are we talking about here? So if the heat index is above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, that becomes of a particularly concerning for our outdoor workers, our farm workers, our farmers, our people who work on the roads, much more susceptible to heat-related illness. If we go above 100 degrees, then we're looking at higher risk for children, the elderly, pregnant women, and people with other underlying health related kinds of conditions. They are the highest risk group. And then if we're over 105 degrees, anyone could be at risk of heat related illness, and particularly people who like to do a lot of run, athletes who are outside. And then we see intermittently these heat index off the charts, and these are becoming more common and extremely dangerous for people. So let's keep going. The slide will. Okay. And then there is, at the national level, the U.S. Global Change Research Program has been in effect for about 15 years, looking at the effects on various aspects of climate change on the United States. But they predict that there will be an increase of thousands to tens of thousands of premature heat-related deaths in the summer as the climate gets hotter and hotter. And some populations, again, I'm just kind of repeating some things, are at greater risk, but I think it's really important to know who the highest risk groups are. Outdoor workers, older adults, people with medical and comorbidities, particularly people with psychological comorbidities, because they are not always aware of what's going on in their environment. And a lot of our folk who have mental illness are also homeless. So that also is another risk. Those living in poverty also who don't have access to cooling and some of the things that people who have more resources can have access to, because they have the funds to buy air conditioning and air purifiers and things like that. Okay, let's keep going here. And then just, I wanted just to highlight again, the climate and health and who is at greatest risk. I think it's really important to keep this in mind. We've talked about children, student athletes, they spend a lot of time outdoors, pregnant women, the elderly, people with mental illness and chronic illnesses, people with limited resources, and particularly here in Central Washington, those who work outdoors and are first responders. And so the overwhelming case for climate action. We've got clean technologies that can pay for themselves over time through higher efficiency and lower fuel costs. Here's a nice picture of wind energy and solar panels together. By slowing climate change and lessening extreme weather disasters, that will yield trillions of dollars in avoided climate damages. Those benefits are long-term, but there are immediate benefits through cleaner air, yielding longer, healthier lives, valued by Americans at $700 billion per year. We know worldwide that 9 million people die of air pollution from the burning of fossil fuels. Cleaner air from meeting the American Paris Agreement targets. We had initially joined the Paris Agreement, then we went out of the Paris Agreement, now we're back into the Paris Agreement, and those targets would avoid 4.5 million premature deaths, if we were able to achieve them, 1.4 million hospitalizations and emergency room visits. It would avoid 300 million lost work days, and because of the impact of climate change on agriculture, it would avoid the loss of 440 million tons of crop losses over the next 50 years. So how long do we have? I think that's a lot what's on our mind. How fast do we have to do this? Well, the International Governmental Panel on Climate Change reports state that we have until 2030 to cut global emissions by 50%. That's global carbon dioxide emissions by 50% to avoid the worst consequences. So here's a poll. If you could raise one finger or two fingers, this is mostly new information. One finger, two fingers, I've heard most of this before. Could we get a general sense of that? Chrissy or Mary Lou?
I'm seeing a lot of twos.
Good, wonderful. This is a good educated group.
And some people have their cameras off, so we're not seeing them.
That's helpful.
But the ones that we see are twos.
Oh, wonderful. So here's a question for reflection, and I'd love people to unmute and give their answer to it. What's the story I tell myself that keeps me from fully engaging around climate change? In other words, taking climate action. And if you could say, use an I statement and say, I'm unable to fully engage around climate action or climate change issues because.
It seems hopeless.
Okay. Feeling like you don't know what to do, that it seems hopeless.
Yeah.
I would also say that in Yakima, there's not as many different types of things that can be recycled constructively. So there's some things I don't try to recycle.
So some of those personal kind of decisions you'd like to do, things like recycling, if you could recycling. A lot of us are moving toward just not trying to not buy as much because of that, because we can't recycle a lot of things, and that's a good thing. Recycling. Other thoughts? What fully engaging around climate change? What keeps you from fully engaging?
It seems making changes in like the kind of heating you have, the kind of it seems like a big decision financially, and then wanting to make sure you're making the right decision is sometimes complicated. It seems complicated. I complicate it for myself. Let's put it that way.
So a lot of you, it sounds like, are interested in taking some personal steps to decrease your carbon footprint, to not burn as much fossil fuels, to recycle, to reuse. Other thoughts. I tell myself that what keeps you from fully engaging around climate change. Other ideas?
Just being lazy.
What was that?
Just being lazy.
Oh,
Just being lazy. Or do you ever feel like you're just not sure what to do? Possibly, and maybe it's not laziness, but just what can I do?
Overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed. That's a good way. Yeah.
boy.
Well, for me, I would be happy to have solar panels put on my roof. But at the age of 74, I may only be here another 10 or 15 years. And I have a feeling that solar panels are really expensive, and I'm not sure I can afford it or be around long enough to benefit from it. But that's kind of narrow-sighted too, because it's not just me, it's the generations to come too.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like more information about solar panels and what maybe might be some maybe tax deductions or incentives that you could take advantage of. I need more information. One thing I would suggest, if you're wanting more information about solar panels, there's going to be a Earth Day fair at Wesley United Methodist Church, and there's going to be folks there talking about solar panels and how you can take advantage of some of the incentives. So that might be helpful to you. I think also, I think you said it. You said I might not be around in 15 years. Oh, but that's short-sighted, because the next person who owns my home or whatever will be able to benefit from those, and the earth will be able to benefit. So you kind of answered your own question, which I thought was really good too. Yeah. Other thoughts?
What day is that going to be at Wesley?
That's that's this Saturday, which is Saturday, April, is that the 23rd or 22nd? April 22nd. This is the 21st, tomorrow's the 22nd. That'll be
It's tomorrow,
23rd, yeah.
23rd. Okay.
Yeah, Wesley United Methodist Church, 10 to 2. And there's
Saturday
gonna
or
be
Friday, Sarah?
Tomorrow is
Saturday.
Friday.
It's Saturday,
Saturday is the 23rd.
23rd.
Yes.
And they will have electric cars on display, and people can ask questions about them. There are going to be some people there to talk about solar panels. Also, it's going to be kid friendly as well. So there'll be stuff for both children and adults. And we will also have information there for Citizens Climate Lobby and some, yeah, so.
Sarah, I also get discouraged about how we're going to make change on a national level because of all of the things like the war in Ukraine that seem to derail and political polarization that derail our goals. So that's discouraging as well.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Oops,
I hear you there.
we lost your slideshow. Whoops.
I apologize for this. Yeah, let me just see if I can see what happened there. We'll get back.
Well, while you're doing that, Lori Herman, they said, I'm ready to do more with our Yakima CCL group and have volunteer to help
Oh,
staff
great.
CCL booth on Earth Day.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, they said, yeah, she put in the chat.
Great. Great.
Yes, and I am expecting you there because Rob Strader told me that you were coming. So thank you. So what I emphasize is, and I think is small actions that actually in when you look at it across whatever 50 chapters of Citizen Climate Lobby and thousands of people doing it can be extremely powerful. So power in community with others. It sounds like most of you have a personal conviction that climate change is happening, and I am really concerned about it. But you need to have kind of a path. How do you take action? And what might be a successful path? What might and then you need other people supporting you. You need a community. What makes a good climate solution? And this is one of the reasons I'm so excited about Citizens Climate Lobby. I mean, we advocate for climate solutions, a variety of climate solutions, but one of the most powerful ways to decrease carbon emissions is a carbon fee and dividend. And I'll talk about that coming up here. So, and we'll talk about why it drives large scale change quickly. We need to do this in a very rapid fashion. It looks out for those who can least afford rising energy costs. And that I hope that I've emphasized that the people who are going to have the greatest, see the greatest impact of climate change are some of our most vulnerable, our poor, our mentally ill, our children, our pregnant mothers, our chronically ill, elderly, our, so it has to look out for those folks. It has to be healthy for the planet and the economy. And it has to be durable. It can't, we have these different administrations that change every 4 years. It has to stick around. It can't, it has to stick around. It has to be durable. And it uses incentives that support choice. Okay, so let's see if I can, it's going again. So I'm going to briefly talk about this, but if you really want to get more information, put in Citizens Climate Lobby, and there's a nice video that goes through how this works. Well, so this is a carbon fee and dividend policy, and it charges a fee on fossil fuels at the source. So at the where it's coal is dug out of the ground, where oil is pumped out of the earth. And it returns 100% of the net revenue to households as a dividend. And so it protects the middle income and lower income. who need to be protected from it. And it really, the people most responsible for carbon pollution are going to, the industries and people most responsible for carbon pollution are those who have the biggest carbon footprint, which tend to be the people who are have higher incomes. So this protects middle and low income folk. And okay, so this is just this is a slide that shows where we are. So currently, we are, if we don't do anything, our emissions in the US are forecasted to remain flat. What the International Panel on Climate Change states is that to keep our global temperature rise between 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees centigrade, we have to decrease carbon emissions by 71% to 100%. And we have to do that fairly rapidly. The Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act has been studied, and it will help drive emissions down to net zero by 2050. There is I gave Mary Lou some information about En-ROADS. En-ROADS is a computer modeling that has been created by MIT that helps, you can plug in different solutions to see what the impact would be on carbon emissions. And when you put in a carbon fee and dividend, it has the fastest decline in carbon emissions. So this polluters pay policy will incentivize an explosion of clean energy while sending carbon cash back payments to American households to spend as they see fit. And this, I'm giving just a brief overview. And if you really want to get into the details of this, I would highly recommend that you go to the other is the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. That will give you a lot of the information. And let's see, let's keep going. And it's currently in the House of Representatives. It's HR 2307. It's currently supported by 95 representatives. And again, how it works, charge a fee on fossil fuels at the source. You return 100% of net revenue to households as a dividend. And there's this carbon border adjustment I will not go into, but it basically, it puts pressure on other countries that don't have a carbon fee to get a carbon fee. So it has kind of an international way it can pressure other countries to take on this carbon fee and dividend. So what it does, the benefits are, it will get us to net zero emissions by 2050. It will we'll have this explosion of affordable clean energy because what happens is people, when they see something's more expensive, they will conserve. They will say, well, maybe I will get those solar panels now. And then it will save lives because we have a cleaner air, and it puts money in people's pockets. And in 2021, climate volunteers across the nation got 4 pieces of bipartisan climate legislation signed into law through the omnibus bill and the bipartisan infrastructure bill. 2 climate bills passed through at least 1 chamber of Congress, and the bipartisan Growing Climate Solutions Act passed the Senate, and the Hope for Homes Act, which is an insulation kind of thing and energy conservation kind of bill, was included in the House Reconciliation Bill. And that those are still hung up, but we're hoping to get those passed as well this year. Let's keep going. Then there's some new spending on climate provisions that we're looking at, trying to get in the next bill that they're working on, the reconciliation bill, and that would be the resilience. This is resilience, including flood and wildfire mitigation, ecosystem restoration, weatherization, and cybersecurity. There'll be 47.2 billion for that. Clean school buses and ferries, getting electric school buses and ferries, 7.5 billion. We really need this electric vehicle infrastructure if we're going to have people buying electric cars. We need to have a reliable infrastructure, and that includes chargers, 7.5 billion. And actually, these actually are in the bill that got passed. And then the clean energy transmission, 65 billion. So let me move this out of the way. And this is addressing legacy pollution. That's Superfund site, just cleaning up a lot of Superfund sites as well. Okay, next. So right now we're working on getting the budget reconciliation, which has a lot of climate related monies in it passed. And that is, let's see, excuse me. And we are working on, this is one of the things that we're working on, mobilizing over 168,000 calls and emails to Congress and President Biden. I would like to say, if you can Google Citizens Climate Lobby monthly calling campaign. This is a really great way that doesn't take much time, but can really push us toward more climate legislation. What it is you go to this thing called Citizens Climate Lobby monthly calling campaign. You put in your information, and what it does is once a month, they send you a text and it says, it's your day to call President Biden, or it's your day to call Representative Newhouse or our senators. And what it has is it will, you do it on your cell phone, it will put you through to a web page that says, gives you a little script that you can use, or you can basically say, you can say whatever you want to say in terms of what you would like that representative or senator or President Biden to do on climate change. But they have a script, and you can call, it will give you the phone number, and you call the, they'll give you the phone number for Newhouse's office or the senator's office. And you push the button, it calls it for you. And if you call after hours, you leave a message and say, hi, I'm Sara Cate. I'm calling Senator Cantwell. I'm very concerned about climate change. I would like you to act on or to vote for legislation on climate. But they have, more specific information that they want you to kind of relay. But and the nice thing is you don't have to talk to a person necessarily. What they do is it's a numbers game. They say, well, gosh, we got 150 people or 1,000 people calling about this particular bill. And that actually is when you think about the community that's calling, that really is very powerful. And it's a very simple thing. I do it, and many of the people on the Hermans do it. I know that many of the people are part of this campaign, and it's making a difference because they're hearing our voices. And when they hear thousands of voices on this issue, it really is important. And we have made a lot of headway. So we have reached over 4.5 million people in targeted states through text and phone banking and digital advertising campaigns. This is a very well done grassroots effort. They do a lot of training at CCL, and they're very accepting and open to wherever you are in terms of climate action. We've published over 3,400 op-eds and letters to the editor, and that has really been pushing opinion and understanding about climate issues. It's over the past 5 to 10 years, I've seen amazing change. Amazing transformation over the past several years. And we've gotten news coverage in the New York Times nationally. Yes, pardon?
Make a difference. But if I'm limited, then I can talk about.
So we're really pushing building the political will to act on climate, and we're doing it one person at a time in a very grassroots way. And I hope that what I've tried to convey is that everybody can do something, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. It doesn't have to be putting solar panels on your house. It could be simply calling your legislators and really getting there, here, and they listen to us. They see how many calls we make, and it will make a difference. If you're at all interested in learning more about this legislation or about CCL, every Wednesday at 8 p.m., if you go to cclusa.org/intro, you can hear more about Citizens Climate Lobby and more about the Energy Innovation Act. And I feel like I'm not in control of the screen. I'm going to go back. I'm going to move this thing down a little bit. Okay. The Energy Innovation Act has its own webpage, and you can go to that, energyinnovation.org, and that will also tell you more about this interesting climate solution, the carbon fee and dividend, that is so powerful. And I don't know why my thing is just, sometimes it wants to move and then it doesn't. Okay. Let's see. Okay, there it is. I just have to laugh doing these presentations on Zoom. I think I'm too old for it, but anyway. CCL has over 590 groups throughout the world. We have more than 200,000 supporters in our network. But we work locally. We work in Yakima. I would highly recommend, if you want a really positive group of people to work with, to join. But I understand people are busy, but it is a wonderful, positive community. And let's keep going. And let me. And I mentioned that thing, the monthly calling campaign. We're really trying to have everybody call their senators, call your representatives, email President Biden. It's crunch time for climate action. Let's get loud. And we really are working on that. And we have made, let's see, contacts we've made to Congress, 167,942,000. And our goal is 170,000. Okay. And then, as I mentioned, there's easy tools. Just go to CCL to figure out how to do this. And this is, and this is just more of the same. We've, 3,000 grassroots endorsements. We have endorsements from farmers. We have endorsements, like I said, from the newspaper, from city councils. And if there's anybody in our community you think I should approach, I'm very interested in giving presentations like this to different groups from different political perspectives. We're really interested in getting more conservatives involved. And so if you have a group that you think would like to hear this presentation, I'd be happy to call and see if, and talk to them about it. And this just we have a presence on Facebook, Yakima Citizens Climate Lobby. You can join us on Facebook. I haven't quite gotten to Twitter. Or you can join our letter writing parties that we have. And then in June of this year, we have a conference that you can participate in virtually by Zoom, or actually attend in person. It will also be an in-person event as well. And so here we go again. So maybe open it up. What did you learn or relearn today that is important or energizing? What actions might you take? Local action or national action? And what questions do you have?
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Do you want to? Thank you. Do you want to go off your shared screen so we can see everybody and see what questions they have? They can unmute themselves if they have questions.
Yes, I will. And before I do that, since I'm closing out this presentation, I just wanted to share this one last quote from the founder of CCL, who has passed away in the past couple of years, Marshall Saunders. I used to think that the important people were taking care of the important problems. No, preserving a livable world is up to us little people. What we do and do not do really counts. So thank you very much, and I will stop sharing.
Thank you.
Could you put that screen back up for local phone contact?
Oh yeah, I will do that. Okay, I will do that right now.
Well, I think I got it all jotted down, and I'll get it all sent out to everybody in the email afterwards too. So
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, we can do that. Great. Okay, well, please unmute yourself with questions. One that I have, Sarah, is if the carbon fee and dividend legislation actually passed at the national level, would that affect the entire country then? Or I know states
Yes,
are acting separately too, right?
No, it would be federal legislation that would impact everything nationally. Yes, and there is possibility in future, like the reconciliation, that there might be a carbon fee integrated into that as well. Yeah.
I have a comment and a question. I notice we pay a lot of attention nationally to carbon. What about methane, which is also a rather large problem?
Yeah, that is a big problem with the carbon fee and dividend. Methane, would be one of it would be reduced as well. Yes, there is a lot of concern about methane releases, particularly around fracking and various other kinds of industries. And there is a large concern. When you do read that book, Speed and Scale, they talk, there's a chunk on methane releases.
Okay.
So it will talk about, and that as well. Here.
And then the question part is, the CCL, I notice that, we're involved in a lot of political things, but what about getting out to like kids and students and so forth and looking at, let's just get down to the basics, quit using those plastic water bottles, things of that nature, which, it starts at home. And I think we should encourage the next generations to do that.
Yeah. Plastic bottles are produced from fossil fuels.
Yeah.
And one of the things I didn't mention is that there is an effort. There is now a new sustainability committee with the city council.
Right.
And that was one of the suggestions I had, is a public education campaign about what great water we have in Yakima, and that there's really no reason for people to buy bottled water, because we have wonderful water here, and you don't really know where that water's coming from. One of the communities that has some of the highest levels of purchasing of bottled water is the Latino community. And what I have heard, but I'm not sure if I don't have any research on this, that one of the reasons they do buy bottled water is they're not used to having water coming out of the tap that's drinkable. But if we could educate and to have an education campaign,
Right.
I think it would be fabulous. I'm all for it.
I do too.
And so that's one of the things I threw out to the sustainability committee.
No, excellent.
Yeah. And
Some of-
actually, Kay Funk had really wanted to do a public education campaign, and that when she was, on the city council, it needs to become a priority.
Right.
Sarah, some of us wrote to the city council about the sustainability committee, and we felt like we got a response. So Toby, we can weigh in on the education part of it to the
Good.
city council and to the sustainability committee. Good.
And it's moving ahead.
Yeah.
Thanks to those letters and emails. It's just wonderful. I just wanted to make sure it's actually going to have measurable goals, and it's going to meet those goals, and it's not just a fluff, but it's going to really do some things.
Yeah, my youngest daughter is in education and she asked me these questions. And I said, well, I'll in turn ask, the people here. But she's very concerned about, the students in her high school and so forth. And said, Dad, they really don't have much of an understanding about climate or sustainability or virtually anything, waste. And she said, I'm trying to work on that, but I have so many layers above me. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have to say though, we have a young man in our group, Connor Lincoln, who is he's a conservative, but he has started a chapter of CCL at Davis High School. He has he's been a part, I just going to say this as an inspiring thing, part of a statewide group of high school students that have met with our state representatives and senators and talking about climate change, and with a whole I think there is a growing understanding, but probably also helplessness among our young people. But he is one of the people that spoke at when we met with the editorial staff of the Yakima Herald, and it was his testimony, I think, that made them say, yes, we support this. He's an amazing young man, and I think there's many like him at the high school level. And he is going on, he's graduating. But I think there's more young people out there than maybe than we think that are really, really concerned and are acting. I have another young woman who's going to be helping at the stand that we're having at Wesley, a young woman who's going into environmental studies, and she's at Central and is getting her master's there. They're there, they care, they just need a venue for action, I think, and this is their future.
Thank you.
Hey,
Other questions? Don't forget to unmute yourself if you were going to talk. Susie?
Yeah, I remember back in the 70s, we had zero population growth, and no one ever talks about that anymore. It's like worse than talking about money or death. No one ever addresses that anymore. Has your group ever said anything about that?
Well, I think it's a very tricky area. For someone who is the medical director of Planned Parenthood for 10 years, I understand women, families, need to have the tools to limit their family size. But oftentimes there is some concern about possible, I think, racism associated with it, that it's like we've got to control the masses out there type thing. So it's been a touchy, in the environmental justice area, it's a very touchy area, because it's like birth control for the masses, but not for the elites, or something. I don't, there are some issues there.
No, it could be for everybody, not just the masses, maybe the elites.
Well, I know. Well, that's why support Planned Parenthood.
that's a whole other story.
People don't like to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think giving families the tools to, control their family, decide how large their families are is really important. And we know that spacing of children is really important in terms of the health of families and health of communities. And but I think it's a personal choice. And so
It's a
yeah,
divisive
hard one.
issue. Yeah, can be a divisive issue.
Yep, it is a divisive issue.
Well, it's quite likely that I'm going to drop by Wesley this Saturday.
Great.
Yay.
But just out of curiosity, since most of our power or a lot of our power comes from a hydroelectric around here, how much carbon are we really saving by going to solar panels?
Well, it's a good question. My biggest worry is that what's going to happen to the hydroelectric, to the dams once the snowpack gets less and less, and so then, right now we have, it's a high percentage of our electricity and it's great. But will that be the way it is in 10, 20, 30 years? Not sure.
Sarah, will there be more than one solar? Is there going to be a solar company there or several, or what's going to be the representation?
Oh, yeah.
there?
Well, I have to say, I'm not organizing this thing.
Okay, I'll look it up. I'll look it up. Okay.
Mick Jenke
Okay.
is organizing it,
Okay.
and that's the glass recycling group
Okay.
that's organizing it. If you go on Facebook,
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know how much detail is in that. I do know I can't answer how many different solar panel groups, but if you have questions about solar panels, we've recently put solar panels on our house here in Yakima, and we have a house that we lived in when we lived in Seattle, and we have a big solar array. So we've actually had some experience with this, and I'd be happy to answer anybody's questions on it. I think I put down my email, scate@uw.edu.
I'll put all of this in our email. At the end, we send out a feedback survey, and then I've jotted down just about everything as far as email links and links.
Yeah. And again, I apologize for the technical things. I don't know. Yeah, it just crazy stuff.
It happens, but it still was good. I mean,
Great.
thank you. I mean, it was very good. We're still answering questions and stuff, but it still was good. So
yeah, I'd love to hear any other questions.
Any other questions? You could send them in and we could relay them if you want. Let me just say a couple words. Sarah, thank you so much for presenting today. And a small group of us is actually going to read the book that Sarah talked about, Speed and Scale. It's John Durr's book, Speed and Scale, which tries to develop a plan of how you actually, an actionable plan of how you actually get to net zero by 2050. And if any of you want to join that reading group, just include that in your note to Chrissy, and we will let you know about those meetings. And then I just want to quickly say that on May 18th, Heather Hasty, who is Toby's daughter, we were talking about, she's the principal at Davis. She's going to be talking to us about challenges for educators, teachers, and students. She is interested, if you have questions you would like her to address, she would love to know about that. So again, you can include those in your questions to your feedback to Chrissy. She'll be talking on May 18th. And then on June 15th, we've got Rodrigo Renteria Valencia, who's an assistant professor of anthropology and museum studies at Central Washington. And he's going to talk to us about Hispanic communities in Central Washington. So we've got some great Zoom talks coming up. We've had a good time today. And Sarah, I'm really sorry about our technical problems, but we still learned a lot. And this is recorded on Zoom for people who want to check it out and see it and didn't get a chance to today or want to relook at certain parts of it.
Mary Lou?
So thank you. Yes.
This is Gail. Would you have Sarah repeat the times at the United Methodist Church on Saturday?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sarah, isn't it 10 to 2?
10 to 2
Got it.
Okay.
All right. We got
at
it.
Wesley.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you want to do everything at once for Earth Day, go to the Cowiche Canyon from 10 to 12, and then go from 12 to 2.
Exactly.
to
There you go.
Wesley, and it's very, I was going to say at the beginning, but we got thrown off course. This is a very appropriate day to be giving this presentation, Sarah, just right next to Earth Day. So we appreciate your planning it that way with us. I mean, you did the planning. Thank you for that. This is a perfect time to be doing it with Earth Day coming up. Okay, well,
Thanks for the invitation.
so much. Yeah, thanks so much to all of you. And you'll see this recording online. If you have other questions, when Chrissy sends you the email for feedback, ask those questions and we'll try to cover them then. And
Yes.
thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Where'd she go? Oh,
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
she's already on. Good night, everybody.
Tired.
All right.
Okay. So we will leave.